Gary Stevenson's Channel 4 documentary has ignited a huge debate about inequality in Britain, and that's a good thing. I was actually invited to take part in the documentary, but after thinking about it carefully, I decided not to. Not because I didn't want to debate Gary, quite the opposite. I wanted enough time to explain my views properly rather than trying to squeeze them into a few edited television clips. Like Gary, I didn't grow up with wealth or privilege. Where Gary and I agree is that Britain has become too unequal. Where we disagree is why. I don't think Britain's biggest problems are simply about how wealth is shared. I think they're about how wealth is created and how the country is managed. That, for me, is the difference. Gary often talks as though when somebody becomes richer, somebody else must become poorer. Sometimes that's true, but I think that's the minority. Most wealth creation helps the entire economy. Businesses employ people. They buy goods and services. They export around the world. They pay taxes. Living standards rise. That's how countries become richer. Housing is another example. Gary is absolutely right that housing has become one of Britain's biggest causes of inequality. Where I disagree is why. The housing crisis isn't primarily about billionaires, it's about supply and demand. For decades, we've allowed demand to grow faster than supply. We simply haven't built enough homes. Planning is painfully slow. Infrastructure hasn't kept pace. Too many developments are delayed or blocked. Gary also spends a great deal of time talking about redistribution. I think he spends far too little time talking about productivity. If productivity doesn't improve, it becomes much harder for wages to keep rising. That's one of the reasons the United States has pulled so far ahead of Britain over the last couple of decades. If Britain had enjoyed similar productivity growth, we'd almost certainly be a much, much wealthier country today. Then there's taxation. A wealth tax sounds great, but economics doesn't stop at whether something sounds fair. It asks whether it actually works. Many countries have tried annual wealth taxes, and many eventually abandon them. Finally, I think of one of Britain's biggest economic problems that receives far too little attention: government management. Think about HS2, the Post Office Horizon scandal, billions spent on unusable PPE. Those weren't failures caused by a lack of tax revenue. They were failures of management. So Gary, if you're watching, my invitation is open. Come on to my podcast, The Boardroom. Let's have a proper discussion, not decide who to see who wins, but to test our ideas against each other and test it against the evidence and let people make up their own minds.